その方を誘わなかったのですか？
理想主義者だったんだよ。
Oh, so this is the world where Kiritsugu didn't shoot down the plane that has foster mom in it. I will never get tired of that image. Continuing right from where we left off last week, Magilumiere had decided to take Kana's suggestion to heart and design a new spell that would be flexible enough that it could spread throughout the sewer systems below the shopping arcade and distinguish the Kai. I'm guessing this is supposed to highlight how big companies like AST didn't have this sort of wiggle room to create new materials on the fly. Not just because it could be time-consuming, but more importantly, they had images to maintain, and creating even a slightly flawed product could lead to some bad press. There are valid arguments for both sides of the coin, as sometimes people do just want the safer, more proven product, but at other times, they are also kind of better off with the new and up-and-coming risk-takers who also don't mind not conforming to industry standards. And of course, even for those risk takers, it did mean that they could afford to be sloppy, as we actually got to see Shigemoto and Nikoyama hard at work at designing magical circles. I actually really liked this a little bit, as while some of it was kind of technobabble a la Star Trek, some of it did make sense, at least in terms of what sort of spell they were trying to design, and I actually liked how the boss used plain old paper and pencils to write up his ideas for it. It showed that, yeah, the dude was a bit of a boomer, but also that sometimes finer details can't be jotted down if you're just writing it all in Microsoft Word. I mean, I'm certainly not one to talk, but just little moments like this do give us a good sense of what the character is like. Though, and Midorikawa helped by being their cheerleader. Yeah, if it were me, I would just tell him to just shut the hell up and let me work. And to contrast with the innovations of our titular company, AST's representative in May had taken a job where she just wanted to do everything by the books and templates she had been given.
Besides, the insurance premiums are killing me.
Actually, in a good subtle bit, she did kind of adjust her magic to minimize the damage while still talking endlessly about how the owner could just use insurance to cover his dishes that would probably go for exorbitant prices on the aftermarket. So yeah, insurance probably couldn't cover that. It showed that there were at least some layers to this character, and that she wasn't just a drone for AST, even though that was kind of the majority of her personality. Back with our main heroines, they still needed to buy time until their company had finished designing their new spell, so they at least tried to extinguish the more problematic Kais. Yep, can already hear those Dojishin authors drawing away. But yeah, there was some pretty good action this week, as I always do appreciate some good sky battles in my magical girl anime. During all of this, the residents of the shopping arcade were understandably on edge that their homes may be blasted away, which certainly would have been the case if AST had been hired. However, I guess someone told them that a couple of pre-gear who have experience dealing with these jelly monsters were on the job. Are they gonna get rid of them by hugging them away? No. Why would you ever think something like that, kid? Shigemoto and Nikoyama managed to finish up their spell, but they would need to activate it from a wider manhole to maximize its effect. Fortunately, the former managed to figure out that his new employee's abilities would likely include at least a slight photographic memory based on her good studying skills. Like seriously, not to discount the magical girls who of course got all of the good action in this episode, but Shigemoto was the freaking MVP of this one with how well he managed everything. Anyway, Hitomi launched the spell that of course worked perfectly by not only destroying the Kais in the sewers, but also dispersing its effect across the whole area, minimalizing its damage output just enough so it could still extinguish the Kai on the ground by moving through all of the town's water pipes. Good stuff to show that this wasn't purely a show where they threw hands, yet still provided some very satisfying action, as we at least got to see these monsters be wiped out in pretty epic fashion. This even got Mei's attention, who, in a nice subtle bit of visual storytelling, seemed to be inspired a little by their comparators' actions. Again, in spite of her dead eyes and statement that she would just focus on her job, a part of her clearly wanted to do a little more just like them. Later, Hitomi and Kana were very generously thanked for their actions, with at least a lot of practical items. I mean, coffee is an essential part of everyone's life. And sure enough, as Kana surmised, the shopping arcade held a lot of sentimental value for its residents, so they did absolutely the right thing by saving it, and got the best reward possible for it. And in my low-key favorite bit of this episode, the two returned to their HQ with some really good animation that depicted some pretty realistic dynamic lighting as the sun was setting, and some good visual storytelling with Kana looking at her reflection and reflecting on all of her achievements so far. With that, she was able to proudly return to their offices and also see what their boss had done for them. So what you're telling me is that you're learning how to do the most important thing first, huh? And the episode ended with Shigimoto giving a good speech about the aesthetic of their company, which was to learn and grow by understanding their clientele and their needs. And then he also got into another argument with Deku about how heroic magical girls should look. Well, at least he promotes a company that encourages free thought, including the geeky stuff. We also got a post-credit segment where they continued the routine stuff from last week, this time focusing on what Shigimoto did at night. Of course, the dude rightfully turned them down, but they apparently got permission to set up spy cameras in his apartment. Said permission, we didn't really learn who it was from, other than that it wasn't Shigimoto himself, so nothing iffy about that at all. Anyway, Kana and Hitomi were left in charge of monitoring him and found that he did everything a boss at a company should do, including ironing his ribbons and stretching after bathing. Granted, he did use more products than probably the average guy, but at least he was better than Hitomi, who seemed like the type who would only rinse. Like, come on girl, at least use some shampoo and conditioner. This is another really solid episode that further highlighted Magilumiere's methods and differences with other companies. While still very much the underdogs of this show, they never let that define them as characters and are actually really forward-thinking. This led to some good action and, kind of even better, some really heartful moments. What I think makes Magilumiere an especially effective underdog was the fact that none of its members were particularly outstanding, at least in more than one area. Thus, they not only had to work with minimal material, but also limited abilities, which is often more endearing than characters who actually have the most important stats maxed out from the very beginning. Now, of course, that's not to say that they didn't excel in certain areas, which was actually highlighted in this episode. From Kana's photographic memory, Hitomi's skill with the broom, and of course Shigimoto and Nikoyama's engineering, it all combined to really save the day. And while again, I would argue the boss man was the real MVP of this one, everyone, minus Midorikawa, played an essential part in saving the shopping arcade by innovating a new spell, much like how an up-and-coming company could create new tech, which in this show you could even argue was the same thing. As a result, we got some really good action, especially the final cleansing scene, and a very cathartic conclusion when they were thanked by all of the residents. It also kind of helped to develop the other characters, as we got to see more of Koga's uncaring nature, and Mei showing signs of empathy in spite of working directly underneath that guy. It's all good stuff, and to the show's rich character and world building, making for overall another really solid episode. While I'm sure the shopping arcade paid the company very handsomely, and certainly gave them a lot of gifts, sometimes the greatest reward are things that you can't put a price tag on, unless you're McDonald's in Japan apparently. Thank you for watching. As always, feel free to check out some of our other videos on this channel. We actually kind of hinted at in this very video, but we will be covering something special, hopefully in time for Halloween, and if not, maybe we'll just pull a Simpsons Halloween special or something. Look forward to it, and until next time though, farewell for now my friends, and, you know, maybe I'll try doing some stretching of my own.
And I immediately regret this.